Hello and welcome to Aware on the Air, presented by members and friends of AWARE, the anti-war, anti-racism effort, a local Champaign-Urbana peace group. I'm Carl Estabrook. We're recording this at midday on Tuesday, February 18th, in the studios of Urbana Public Television. My guest is Ed Mendel. Recordings of this series of programs and links to the articles we refer to today can be found on the Facebook page for Aware of Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. Comments on this program are welcome. Email us at carl@newsfromneptune.com. Our program concentrates on the news of U.S. war-making, which is generally not reported, not by accident, in the U.S. media. Since 1945, the United States government has killed over 20 million people in wars in Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, Latin America, and elsewhere, designed to maintain the worldwide economic hegemony that the U.S. inherited as the only largely undamaged major country in World War II. Russia lost some 27 million people in defeating Nazism. The U.S. lost 500,000 in World War II as a whole. We're distracted from war news this week by party politics, purportedly about the presidential election. In fact, it's about restoring public support for the neo-lib and neocon policies followed by all recent administrations, but now under attack by the Sanders candidacy. There was a good letter last week in the News-Gazette, which remains one of the few places in town where real political discussion takes place, not just the enunciation of one particular party position. The letter in the letters column of the News-Gazette was from Joseph Bowers of Champaign, a frequent contributor, and to Mr. Bauer's letter, the News-Gazette editor affixed the following headline. People who write letters to the News-Gazette don't get to pick their own headlines. The headline was, letter to the editor, Lies, Lies, Lies Drive War Theme. Joseph Bowers writes, it's all the same lie. For my entire life, the government has lied repeatedly about pretty much every war it is engaged in. There are variations on the theme, but generally it goes like this. Some country somewhere or some evil dictator has misbehaved. Maybe the country has dared to embrace leftist ideals, or maybe the dictator has engaged in alleged atrocities. To the rescue is the United States, conveniently ignoring its own history of slavery and genocide. It has raised the most powerful and most expensive military machine in the world. It sends these forces all over, wrecking countries and leaving bodies strewn in the wake. This pattern is fueled by absurd tales, and the American public embraces them time after time. Iraqi soldiers ripping babies from incubators in Kuwait. Vicious attacks on American forces in the Gulf of Tonkin. Vast stores of weapons of mass destruction hidden in Iraq. Those are the basic lies that animated recent American wars. All were untrue, but effective in setting the course for more war. The press cheerleads, and the U.S. Congress is fine with it all, in bed as they are with the military-industrial complex, which President Eisenhower warned us about over 50 years ago. When one candidate, Tulsi Gabbard, speaks out against these wars, she's immediately smeared as a Russian asset by warmonger Hillary Clinton. And now Iran. Our two great criminal allies in the region, Israel and Saudi Arabia, have been itching for this fight, and the U.S. won't let them down. That's a letter to the News-Gazette, the editor of the News-Gazette, from Joseph Bowers of Champaign, that appeared last week. Ed, what's on your agenda?
Well, I'd like to offer that there is another forum in town.
Oh, yes?
And I've actually used it a number of times recently successfully. And that'll be there's a radio show, A Penny for Your Thoughts, on WDWS. And I've actually submitted about five texts on the air, and they've all been read on the air. And all I can recommend is just keep it short and to the point and don't overflow them with text. Otherwise, they'll put you on ignore.
And they do show a variety of views and so forth?
Absolutely. I've texted things that are in context. Most of the stuff I've texted were local politics. I will admit that, but at least one of them was national politics ones, and I can't recite them offhand, but I have recited them. I keep it short, to the point, concise, and try to make the announcer on the air sound clever, because he's reading something that's intelligible and concise. And there you go.
And when is it on?
It's on from 9 to 11 in the morning. So it is on for about 2 hours every morning, and they do have different issues and guests, things. But it's as close to a forum as you're going to have.
And this is the radio. I mean,
yes,
this is
radio show. Yes.
And what's
if our listeners know what a radio is anymore?
How does one get it?
With the radio,
Yeah, but no, I mean, what station?
1400 WDWS.
Okay, good.
And I also like to mention, because continuing with my thing, I will be an election judge next month at the primary election, which will be Illinois' opportunity to give its say who the candidates should be.
17th of March, right?
I believe it is. Tuesday, 17th of March, yes.
St. Patrick save us, right?
I guess it would be. I guess it'd be.
Yeah.
I guess our government is drunk with power, so not to say, well, I guess you're in our drunk.
There have been some interesting changes in Ireland due to the recent election there. Basically, a leftward tilt to the Irish electorate.
Okay.
But so perhaps St. Patrick will work some of his magic here.
I don't know. I do agree with you. Okay, I wanted to say several things about the elections that you brought up, and I agree with some of the things, aspects of that Bauer was saying there, in the sense that I think the one legitimate candidate, the Democrats are looking for someone who might actually challenge Trump, and there is a candidate who actually would legitimately challenge Trump. I don't know if she would win, but and that would be Tulsi Gabbard.
Yep.
And I believe she is a legitimate. I mean, you look at interviews of her giving interviews, different programs. I mean, she holds herself very, very well. She expresses herself very well. But she's been so marginalized at this point. I think that Democrats are pretty much consider her like gone.
I think it's true. Yes.
And I think that ultimately they also have a low regard for Bernie Sanders, and they're trying. Even though he probably won't enter at this point, it looks like he probably won't enter the convention with either leading or second in delegates to Buttigieg, whatever it is. And so I think that he's going to be discarded also. And I think pretty much they're setting up a scenario where the candidate will probably be on the second ballot at the convention, and I will stand with that. It will be Bloomberg. And I don't know about Clinton being the vice president. I think he's going to go with the safer choice of the other woman, I think, from Minnesota. I don't know whose name I got to keep on. Klobuchar.
Oh, Klobuchar.
I think it'll be a much safer choice. Having Hillary Clinton as your vice president is a tricky choice to make. I guess.
You suggested
I would if I were him, I would hire food tasters and extra bodyguards and the whole assortment of collection of safety nets.
And the history of late associates of Clinton, from Vince Foster to Seth Rich, you think?
Seth Rich, and actually going back to Arkansas, there's something. I think there is something there, and it's been covered up. And unfortunately, at this point, it sounds so outrageous that no, it can't possibly be true. And I unfortunately, I think there's no with the truth there.
Well, I think you're right that the emergence of Bloomberg is no accident in the sense that it's not a result of a groundswell of popular enthusiasm, but rather a response to a groundswell of enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders. I
think what's happening, Carl, is that they're trying to perceive Bloomberg as being the other side of Trump.
Exactly.
In other words, he can say anything he wants. He can be a ruffian or just like
right.
Trump, and he can be a billionaire just like Trump, and say, well, here's the choice. You got two billionaires, and you have I'm just as rough speaking as he is, and so I make mistakes just like he does, and they don't care. I mean, for instance, this last thing about farming, they made that's a 10-second clip about farmers, but you can find out on the internet,
right.
If you want to show it on the air, but. I mean, he makes mistakes all over the place, and he doesn't care. And it's sort of like, and no, it's not true. I think Trump is going to completely do circles around him if he's the candidate. And I definitely think that they truly don't understand Trump.
Well,
Trump has made connections that the Democrats used to have.
hmm
And
I think there's something to that.
they used to have with the common man, if you will, the labor, the downtrodden, if you will. I mean, almost going back to the FDR. I mean, go back, and I think that literally the Democrats have lost touch with that reality. I don't know when it happened, at what point in the deep past it happened. Maybe with Jimmy Carter. I don't know what it was, but it's gone.
I think you may well be right. The Democrat Party is so scared that Bernie Sanders may in fact garner enough delegates to be the nominee that they're grasping at all sorts of straws, straw men as well, in order to oppose Bernie. Pete Buttigieg is was the chosen savior for a while, and then as the polls began to suggest that Bernie would even do better than he in a Democratic convention, suddenly Bloomberg emerges, and we look at the possibility of a Bloomberg candidacy for the Democrats as opposed to a Trump candidacy for the Republicans.
I think they're going to do everything they can to make sure he falls short, even if it's just a few delegates short, whatever it is. They're going to make sure that Sanders falls short of the count. And they're going to do whatever they can. Even they have to change the rules and make sure that he falls short, and in order to make sure that he's not the candidate. Because I think that they're more, in a strange way, they're probably more scared of Sanders than they are of Trump.
I think that's right. I think that's quite right.
Which is kind of bizarre.
I think it's absolutely true.
But I think at this point they're more like it's like one step at a time.
Yep.
I'm sorry, the phone there. But I think they're more concerned about yeah, I think they're more concerned about Sanders than they are about Trump, like I just said. But it's kind of strange.
I think that's exactly right, and that's the reason that Bloomberg is able to throw his money around and make way as he does. And if I had to bet on it now, I would bet that the Democrats do nominate Bloomberg. I think they were trying to use Buttigieg as the savior, but they think they've got a better savior now with Bloomberg.
And I don't even think they're even concerned about Bloomberg getting any delegates. Well, whatever delegates you get, whatever it is, it doesn't make a difference. You just get a few, whatever it is, you're on the board, and just keep on going all the way to the convention, and they'll make sure that he's the candidate. So
I think you're right. I think that's what we're looking at.
It's almost as if like a horse race, and he comes in last, and you won the race. You still won the race.
The question is whether it's a whole horse involved, right?
That's the problem.
Pete Buttigieg, I have some peculiar connections with. His father was a longtime faculty member at the University of Notre Dame, where I taught briefly, and his father was quite a considerable scholar, a translator of Antonio Gramsci, and the Gramscian political philosophy has been one of the most influential, I think, from the post-World War II, in the post-World War II world, although he's not a household name by any means. Buttigieg has taken a very young Buttigieg, Pete Buttigieg, has taken a very different political line from his father, and the comment on Buttigieg from Samuel Finkelstein, I think, is interesting. He writes, obscure presidential candidates don't typically garner hundreds of elite national security endorsements before a single vote is cast. It says something about where Pete Buttigieg is coming from. So what do these spooks and vulture capitalists see in Mayor Pete? It can't be Buttigieg's foreign policy resume, because he doesn't have one. He hasn't proposed any notable policies to distinguish himself from the other corporate-friendly candidates, so that can't be it either. Some have posited that Mayor Pete may be a CIA asset himself, but the supporting evidence is circumstantial at best. May be true, but as a CIA doesn't like to advertise their support for candidacies, they have other ways of doing it. Perhaps the most reasonable conclusion is that they see Buttigieg as an empty vessel, opportunistic and unmoored by ideology or political goals beyond his advancing his career. Buttigieg is the ideal candidate for those who seek to maintain existing hierarchies. Indeed, his national security endorsement list is filled with people who keep America's imperial machine humming along smoothly. What is the thread that connects the CIA, USAID, and the World Bank? All three institutions exist to prop up a grossly unequal global order in which a tiny sliver of the population hoards unimaginable wealth while the mass of people get by on next to nothing. At a time when that order looks increasingly untenable, with anti-austerity protests breaking out from Chile to France to Lebanon, Mayor Pete makes perfect sense. I think that's right. I think that 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 in a funny way, the only competition for Mayor Pete saving the bacon of the Democratic Party is Bloomberg.
Well, Carl,
and Bloomberg emerges as another possibility from representing the same constituency.
Well, I will respond to this because this is rather interesting. You say about Buttigieg being an empty suit. I mean, basically, this is following the tradition, at least the recent tradition of Democratic candidates, of Obama being an empty suit, of basically Clinton being an empty suit, sort of. Because
that's true.
I mean, if you look at it, because look at Clinton, he literally, when he was repudiated in the first 2 years of his administration, he literally doubled back and became more, under Newt Gingrich's thumb, if you will, if you recall your history books, back in 92, 94.
I think that's true.
And so literally, he was also an empty vessel, if you will, sort of, willing to do whatever it takes to get reelected, whatever it is to get elected, if you will. So I think there is something to this. Literally, the Democrats have become sort of like an empty vessel, a mirror. They're trying to mirror whatever you want. We'll be whatever you want because we're trying to represent you, whatever it is. And it looks like they're holding a mirror to the public, saying whatever it is. And so you're always seeing yourself, whatever it is, and thinking that I guess he's for us because we see us.
Right. I don't think you're wrong, Ed. I mean, all recent presidential administration, going back to Jimmy Carter's, follow the same set of policies domestically and foreign policy. Policies that have been called neoliberal and neoconservative. Neoliberalism means essentially more austerity, and neoconservatism means essentially more war abroad. This characterized, as I say, every presidency from Jimmy Carter's to Barack Obama's.
But do you consider Trump to be a game changer of sorts?
Well, that's a very good point.
In parts and sorts, I won't say completely. I want to be fair to you, but not to be completely. But there is something there that is quite different, because they are trying to somehow just get him out of the way. What are you doing? What are you doing? And so this effect of so I think Trump is doing something that is really. I guess the intel state, or I don't know, they're really disturbing the deep state's consciousness. What it is. So.
I think there are two aspects of the Trump presidency that need to be noted. First, the election, and then the performance, and that they're quite different. The election of Trump, the campaign that he waged, was an attack on those neoliberal and neoconservative policies that had characterized the Obama administration and the administrations before it. He attacked the hope and change account of the American economy, which was really a maintenance of the same economy with the same people profiting from it.
And he's been dismantling it.
Trump challenged that in the campaign. He said, we're not going to go with this more war. Remember, Obama was the first American president in history to have been at war throughout two presidential terms. Even Roosevelt couldn't do that,
We had four.
No American president had done that before. One of the things that Trump did, and one of the things that the poll showed contributed to his election, was to attack the war making of Barack Obama. In office, certainly, Trump has done other things in regard to war making, including the criminal attack on the Iranian general. Yeah. But the fact of the matter was that what elected him was his attack on Obama's war making. He also attacked Obama's economic policy, which most Americans understood was not a matter of hope and change for them, but rather than an increase in inequality, an accelerating concentration of wealth in Obama's America, and people rejected that at the polls. The campaign on those issues, war and the economy, made Trump president. Now, the reason we have trouble seeing that is that in office, instead of maintaining those attacks on Obama's war and economic policies, Trump largely continued them, to the point that we had an argument this week about who the economic expansion gets the credit for the recent economic expansion, such as it was, uneven as it was in the United States. In office, Trump, who had attacked Obama's policies in the campaign, adopted them, and they have been followed effectively in spite of the bluster on both sides in recent years.
I don't have this stuff. I don't have my computer in front of me to challenge you, but I disagree. That I do think that Trump is doing something quite different than Obama did. I think the word is deregulation, and he's unfettering the constraints of certain amount of economic policies. I don't have all the exact the things in front of me. But I just disagree with you that Trump is not continuing it. I think he's doing something quite different, and I think he's quite successful with his economic policy, more so than Obama was. But I don't know. This is my opinion, my perception of what's happening.
Thank you, Ed. You've been listening to Aware on the Air, produced and directed by Jason Liggett and mystical Ethan Young. Thanks to whom also this program and others like it will be available on YouTube and archive.org. Thanks to our researcher Jeff Nicholson, whose notes are on the Facebook page for Aware of Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. And we'll conclude tonight with an interview provided by Jeff Nicholson with Lisa Fithian, author of Shut It Down, a new book. In a way, this reiterates and expands on a point we discussed last week in a Democracy Now! Interview with the Squad. That's a reference to the group of congresswomen, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. Representative Ayanna Pressley said, speaking for the Squad, that, quote, our very existence is the resistance to the Trump presidency. If that's true, then the existence of, say, slaves, whether the kind of slaves now outlawed or the slave labor going on in prisons today, is its own resistance. They need not do anything but continue in their servitude to somehow resist power. This lie from the Squad is undoubtedly said to dissuade people from looking too closely into any Squad member's actual choices while in office, and thus give the Squad social permission to serve permanent government interests. For example, Jacob Levitch, New York resident in New York's 14th Congressional District, the district that AOC represents, recently wrote an article for Counterpunch about his experience trying to convince his congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, perhaps the most famous member of the Squad, to, quote, act quickly to thwart the coup and defend the lives and rights of the Bolivian people by visiting her face-to-face and bringing this account to her. He presented a petition signed by leading academics and anti-imperialist organizers on behalf of the people of Bolivia. Quote, we provided all personal data and contact info requested by the office, by AOC's office. We were promised that we would be contacted promptly to discuss scheduling a meeting. We were not contacted for weeks. After pressing the issue, always taking care to remain courteous and respectful of process, we were subjected to a galling and contemptuous bureaucratic runaround that sometimes felt like applying to and being rejected by an exclusive private school. This 3-month process involved repeated visits to AOC's office, where our reception ranged from chilly to downright intimidating, endless emails and telephone calls, bureaucratic excuses and dissimulations, and eventually, after much persistence on our part, a half-hour vetting by a conference call by a Washington staffer. The result, as we say in Queens, bupkis.
I'm not shocked by that. I would say that that's a result of their incompetence, but that is their inexperience. This is my opinion.
By contrast, a group of imperialist sympathizers, sympathizers with American policy in Bolivia, who had been promoting the coup for months, were granted instant access. On November 16th, 4 days after the military coup that destroyed Bolivian democracy, Ocasio-Cortez met with a group of pro-Añez, pro-Camacho activists led by one Ana Carola Traverso. Traverso's connection to the Bolivian coup plotters have been extensively documented online. Representative Ocasio-Cortez symbolically embraced the coup by posing for a photo with this group as they brandished the tricolor Bolivian flag, which during that period had become a signal of support for the golpistas. Golpa means a coup, the cousters, as opposed to the Wifala flag, which symbolized popular resistance to the takeover. She told them that she supports their, quote, democratic grassroots movement, the cousters, and offered them, quote, direct lines of communication, close quote. And some, a gang of coup supporters, not constituents, were granted instant access, a photo op, and promises of ongoing support. Actual constituents opposing the coup were shown the door. Our reception by Representative Ocasio-Cortez was radically different from that I received from her predecessor, Joe Crowley. When in 2004 I requested a meeting on behalf of the Queen's anti-war coalition in New York, we were granted prompt and respectful access to the congressman. We did not have high hopes of changing his vote on the Iraq War, but we felt it was important that he hear from his constituents. So apparently did he. We were greeted warmly in his rather funky local office, a striking contrast with AOC's soulless corporate-style digs, where underlings refer to her as the boss, and were encouraged to speak our piece. Crowley never pretended to be an opponent of U.S. imperialism, but he gave us a respectful hearing, stated his position, engaged in what felt like meaningful discussion of the war. At a minimum, as Twitter's blue-check pundits would say, we felt seen. AOC, by contrast, had no time for people who could not help her to burnish her brand as she prepares to run for higher office. As a local staffer who declined to introduce himself, proudly informed us, quote, she refuses 99% of meeting requests from constituents, close quote. Meanwhile, she happily clears her schedule of interviews about her makeup routine, canned videos in which she postures as a fearless progressive, and closed-door meetings with regime change sympathizers. Apparently, AOC had time for the substanceless interview with Democracy Now! Last week. Now, it should be more than what this line the squad uses. Our very existence is the resistance really means. It tells people that they need not do anything to change an oppressive system. One can simply exist and somehow resist power. That's completely untrue, and anyone who has ever examined history or fought for change knows it. Lisa Fithian, in this upcoming interview with Chris Hedges, gives a more practical take on this, which is directly opposed to merely existing. Here's how to effectively organize opposition to create change. I don't agree with all that Fithian says in this interview, but she's talking about the activities that are increasingly necessary.
I think what's revealed here is the incompetence of AOC and their inability to communicate. And
listen to Chris Hedges' interview and consider another possible way of behaving. Finally, AWARE honors those who reveal the crimes of the U.S. government, which the rest of the world knows about but Americans don't. Assange, Manning, Snowden, and others who are the real whistleblowers, truth tellers persecuted by the U.S. government. Now, this is Carl Estabrook for the members and friends of AWARE and Dad Mendel, the anti-war, anti-racism effort of Champaign-Urbana, saying in the words of the late newsman Edward R. Murrow, good night and good luck. Take care.